Again, welcome to the Holberton School. I'm Sylvain Kalash, the co-founder of Holberton School. So before we speak about AR, VR, let's talk about what we are doing here at Holberton. So Holberton School students have been hired by Silicon Valley-based companies. And generally, they are hired to build the next generation of the self-driving car, build software for the best hardware in the Valley, but also to protect the Earth from asteroids. And lately, something new happened. One of our students has been hired to build a virtual world. So I'm going to tell you more about that. But before it, many of you may already know, but Holberton School mission is to train the next generation of great software engineers, and we want to make this education accessible to the most. So, as I said, our students have been hired by Silicon Valley top companies like Apple, Tesla, Pinterest, and NASA. In fact, 100% of our students find a job 3 months after graduation, and the starting salary is over $100,000, which is pretty much at the level of Ivy Leagues. So as you can tell, our students are great professionals, but they're also very diverse. The age goes anywhere from 18 to 58 years old. 35% of them identify themselves as women. 60% of them are people of color. But diversity is not only about how you look, but also where you come from. We have people who just finished high school, people who are college dropouts or graduated. We have former baristas, we have former taxi drivers, cooks, veterans. So we understand that Holberton, and all of you in the room, if you are here tonight, how critical is it to bring diversity to the tech industry. And the lack of diversity is in big part due to the bias of our society. Holberton School is a life-changing experience. Many of our students do not fit the cookie-cutter profile of people usually getting into the tech industry. And actually, a lot of our students enrolled thanks to friends, family, coworkers. Actually, more than 50% of Holberton School students came because someone recommended the school to them. So one thing I want you to leave tonight with is the fact that every one of you in this room has the power to change this, has the power to influence someone, and to tell them, hey, you too, you could be part of this tech industry. So we are here tonight to speak about diversity and how does this play into the virtual world, whether it's about living in the virtual world, playing or working in the virtual worlds with AR, VR, and gaming. And the gaming industry is huge. It's a huge phenomenon. 2.2 billion people are playing games in the world. So it's roughly about a third of the population. So the game has the power of inspiring people to consume this virtual experience, but also to inspire them to become also creators. That's actually how I got into computer, thanks to games. So back to our AR story. Why are we here tonight? One of the students who got hired by a large car maker actually was testing Holberton School AR/VR curriculum, and we are officially announcing this curriculum tonight. The students didn't even finish it, and is already building this AR experience where you can basically browse and put the car of your choice in your parkway to make sure you like it. I wanted to say a big thank you to Unity, who is here tonight, and Tom Emrich, as well as all the other people who helped us to build this amazing curriculum. A big thank you to the Holberton School team. They are all around you. They made this event possible. It's a lot of work. So big round of applause for them. I will now let the great Tom Emrich, is an investor, community builder, and thought leader in the spatial computing industry, He has talked and written extensively on how these technologies are changing humanity, and now taking over the panel. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I have a loud voice, but how are you doing today? Good. Mike, well, happy Pride, everybody. There we go. I have to turn it on. Whoa. I promise I am in tech. So studies have shown that over 60% of mobile gamers are female, and that Asian American and African Americans are most likely to be gamers. In fact, the American gaming population between the ages of 6 and 29 is expected to be mostly made up of people of color over the next 10 years. And while the makeup of the users of games is quite diverse, it's not being accurately reflected within the games and experiences that are being created, or at least in the teams that are making these happen. But this lack of diversity, it's not isolated just to gaming. In fact, across the tech ecosystem and the tech industry, the share of people of color in leadership and tech positions hovers around 5%. Of which about a quarter or a fifth are currently being held by women. So there's a lot of work to be done there. And this is extremely important because technology changes the way that we live our lives, and it shapes our future. And so it's imperative that access to this powerful tool is made available to all people. And in order to do that, we need to ensure that all people are actively participating in the creation and the distribution of this technology. This is especially key for world-building technologies like gaming, augmented reality, and virtual reality, collectively known as the next wave of computing called spatial computing. As we move into this next wave, we have a duty to do what we know is right to ensure that equality exists within the teams and especially reflected in the products and solutions that are being rolled out as part of this next wave. And it's especially critical for spatial computing in a time where we're teaching computers how to perceive the world as if they are human and give them access to edit our world or even overwrite our sense of reality and our perception of reality. So tonight's panel discussion is extremely critical. We're going to be discussing the necessity of diversity in gaming, augmented reality, and virtual reality, looking at the current state of diversity within games, and also talking to the game studios and the development platforms in what they're doing to make changes within the industry. And our hope, as Sylvain mentioned, is that this conversation will really act as a catalyst for you, the audience, to inspire you to continue to make change within the industry when you leave this event. And so I'm going to have the privilege to welcome our panelists to the stage. First up is Grammy Award winner, singer, songwriter, record producer, actor, dancer, avid gamer, and Holberton trustee, Neo. Also joining us is Stephanie Magnier, the VP of Global Communications at Ubisoft, creators of Worlds, committed to enriching players' lives with original and memorable gaming experiences. Welcome, Stephanie. And finally joining us is Jessica Lindl, the VP and Global Head of Education at Unity, the world's most widely used real-time 3D development platform. Welcome, Jessica. So we have about 40 minutes today as part of this conversation. I thought to get started, I'm going to do a little one-on-one conversation with each of our panelists so you get a better understanding as to why they're so passionate to be advocates for diversity within this industry. Then I'm going to open it up and allow for our panelists to have a conversation, and this will include you. We do have time for audience Q&A, so please prepare your questions and I'll prompt you when we're ready to have you join the conversation. So, Neo, let's start with you.
Test. There we go. All right.
So Neo, I know you are an avid gamer.
Yes.
And so in listening and talking with your fans, what are they saying about the character and avatar choices within the games that you're playing with them?
For the most part, that they are relatively limited. You know, a lot of the diversity in games is kind of based on stereotype as opposed to cultural differences. You know, the things that make us us versus the things that socially make us us. You know, for example, you can get a black character, you know, with cornrows or an afro if it's a basketball game, or if it's, you know, something like that. You can get an Asian character if it's a fighting game based in Japan or China. But, you know, I think that it's about just positively representing everyone in the realm of this new world that we're literally about to create. You know, there's a lot of separatism in this current world, so I feel like making sure that that's not the case in this brand new virtual world that we're creating is very, very, very important.
And as an artist and an advocate for diversity, but especially a parent, when you're playing these games, what thoughts do you have about the kinds of changes that need to happen for future games, especially thinking about how your kids will be the ones that will be playing them?
Well, my oldest child is 8, my youngest child is 1, and they are all more tech savvy than me, which is not embarrassing. It's a little embarrassing. It's actually very embarrassing. My daughter locked me out of my phone the other day, and I could not get back in she literally locked me out of my phone. Anyway, no. I think above all, I understand that making learning fun is a problem that we've been trying to solve for a really, really long time. Me personally, I would like to see perhaps something a touch more educational in some of the games. Not necessarily an educational game, but a game that is intended to be entertaining while at the same time making it possible for the child to learn something too. I think that that's going to be really, really important. You know, my kids currently spend a good 50% of their time on their Nintendo Switch or whatever the case may be. So it'd be nice to know that in that they're giving this device this much time, that something other than, okay, jump on the mushroom was learned, just personally, yeah.
Yeah, and here at Holberton School, obviously, it's all about learning and making sure that there's an improvement in the diverse student set that will eventually become talent for the tech industry at large. And you, of course, are a trustee here at Holberton. In your experiences in talking with the students and the tech leaders that support and that are going through the program, what are some things that you've learned?
I've learned that this problem is bigger than just my personal opinion or the personal opinion of anybody in this room. This is a global issue. Making sure that everybody is properly represented in these games in this virtual world. So I thank God for Holberton. I thank God for you know this panel and what we're doing here, making it a bigger conversation. Making sure that, again, when we get to this virtual world that we're creating, that we're making sure that the people that are creating it are being conscious and aware of, again, cultural differences, not just stereotypes, so that, again, everybody is properly represented, so that everybody feels involved, everybody feels a part of what's coming.
Thanks, Neil.
Thank you.
Stephanie, that's kind of up your alley, this challenge on making sure that everyone's involved, dealing with a lot of different cultures. Ubisoft is huge. You guys have studios all around the world. So maybe tell the audience why diversity is so important to Ubisoft.
So thank you for having us today. I would say that we, at Ubisoft, we really believe that video games have a strong impact and can have a very positive impact on the world we live in and on our players. We all know that when you play a game, you play for many hours. So we want to ensure that it's a memorable and enriching experience. And having a representation of the world and a good representation of the world can only be made thanks to a diverse team and diverse teams who each of the people have a strong voice and is heard. So a strong representation within our teams.
And your overall approach outside the teams for Ubisoft, how are you tackling diversity, with offices from France and Canada, the United States? Talk to us a little bit about the approach that you're taking. organizationally?
Yeah. So I would say that the company has been built across different locations to be close to our players, to be close to our talents, to really understand. We think that diversity is not only the country you come from, or not only gender, or it's really like each individual diversity with my own belief, my own fear, or my own personality, and so it's really important that. Through our locations, being close to our players, to our teams, to the talents, anywhere they come from with their different viewpoints, different skills, is really important. And it's not like I am in China, so I work on a game for China. It's I am in China, in the Chinese studio in Shanghai, and I work with my colleagues in Toronto, and I work with my colleagues in San Francisco, and this is the work we do together that can really ensure the best representation of and the best diversity within our games. And it's not always perfect, but
right.
it's
I can imagine the challenge, right? I was going through your website, and this description of Ubisoft really stuck with me. It said that you guys are creator of worlds committed to enriching players' lives with original and memorable gaming experiences. So this enriching players' lives is such a positive aspiration and mission. And I know when we were talking, it's not just about Ubisoft, it's for the gaming industry at large. So what are you and Ubisoft doing to ensure that diversity is improved in gaming broadly?
I think it's different initiatives, whether within our players' community, making sure that our communities are diverse, that all players can feel good and safe in those spaces. It's within our teams, so making sure indeed that we give, we help providing access to education and to training to very diverse group of people. It's coming here and talk here. It's for me personally, it's being a good ally of the people in my team who wants to organize a Black Pro Mixer event last week at E3, or who want to be part of to sponsor diversity in other communities. It's I think at each individual level that we can all promote a better diversity and inclusion in our industry.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Jessica, let's move on to you. We've talked a lot about the gaming experience, how the games are being made. Of course, Unity is the development platform enabling developers and creators to make this happen. And so the first question to you is why is diversity and inclusion not just a nice to have for Unity?
Thanks so much. Excited to be here. At Unity, our core value, our core belief is the world is a better place with more creators in it, and in fact, more diverse creators. We are all being shaped by the stories and experiences that we go through, and we need to get those diverse stories and experiences into the world to reshape the world into what we want it to be. So for us, this diversity and inclusion is critical for all of our creators. We have millions of creators around the world who publish to billions of devices. So really ensuring that we're providing the skills to empower them with the relevant content, the relevant experiences that can give them economic access and opportunity is key. And then finally, at a very simple level, it's just good for business. More diverse teams drive more innovation. More diverse teams generate more revenue than less diverse teams. And so really, it's just a fundamental requirement to succeed.
And like Ubisoft, your offices are not just global. So how are you addressing diversity and inclusion globally across all Unity offices?
Our offices are not just local.
No, sorry, not just local, exactly.
So what we've created is a global ecosystem to provide access and opportunity to all of our creators, independent of if they have a four-year degree program. I'm so excited to be here at Holberton. I have incredible respect for what Sylvain and the team have been able to create here, and it's just a perfect microcosm of what we're able to do globally, providing learning and career paths with all the tools that are necessary to be able to learn, create your career, and get access to, frankly, the income that can drive, from a technology career perspective, your own personal economic success, and then also the economic opportunity for your company. So really, for us, it was about reducing friction, reducing barriers to entry for all creators, independent of the fact that you may or may not have a 4-year degree.
And you did mention, of course, that diversity is better for business. How is Unity measuring success when it comes to your diversity and inclusion programs and mission?
Yeah, I think the key way that's differentiated from how everyone else, from a tech perspective, measures it is we really look to what our creators have been able to build, and again, the stories that they're putting into the world. Everything from what our students are able to create, our younger students, is just incredibly exciting and empowering. Also to some examples of how you can actually see who you want to become. Great example of an interactive VR experience called Breaking Boundaries, which shows you and helps you immerse yourself with female scientists so you can see what it is that you may want to become. We also have just released an AR application with Childish Gambino. So really being able to highlight really unique stories. We're hoping to do one with Neo. That's why I'm here, to do a deal with him after. Also, finally, there's a ton of VR experiences around diversity and inclusion training at a corporate level that have been created that is just incredibly exciting to see on the Unity platform.
Thanks, Jessica. I think this is a good segue into having a conversation between the four of us. And get your questions ready, audience, because we will be moving into audience Q&A soon. But I want to start off by why diversity is so important for gaming, but especially for augmented reality and virtual reality. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I can't quote the stat that you gave initially, but you said something along the lines of, in the next 10 years, you said about 50. You said 50% of the gaming community will probably be people of color in the whole nine. I mean, the bottom line is it's hard to feel like you're a part of it if you don't see yourself. You know, that's just the cut and dry of it all. And you know, again, in this world that we live in, there's a lot of separatism. There's a lot of, okay, these people over here and these people over there, and we just want to make sure that that's not the case in the virtual world. And I think that the way to do that is to make sure that everybody has a voice, that everybody gets to give their input on what this virtual world is going to look like, what the avatars look like, you know, making sure that there are the ample amount of options so that you can look exactly the way you want to look. If you want to look exactly like yourself, or if you want to be purple, whatever. I just feel like the more option, the more diverse option there is, the better off it'll be in regard to making sure that everyone feels like they're a part of it.
I think also, just to add to that, in addition to the hours, billions of hours people are spending from gaming experiences, AR and VR is now going into every single industry. And so it's yet again another opportunity for us to do this right, to break down those barriers, to be able to empower those experiences for anybody to be able to enter these industries, and seeing it essentially as the next wave of innovation.
And maybe not even so much just culturally and racially, you know, the handicapped people that you know, whatever the case, you know, I just feel like it's going to be the most beneficial to make sure that literally everyone is able to cooperate, to be involved. You know, if you're blind, how is the VR world? How can you maneuver through the VR world if you're blind, or if you're paraplegic, or whatever the case may be? Again, just making sure that there's option for literally everyone.
Yeah, and I think, and speaking about identity and having those identities represented, it's also an opportunity for others to use virtual reality as this empathy machine, which we keep touting. And you can't really walk a mile in someone else's shoes if every shoes is your pair. And so I think along with making sure that the world is represented, just so that I can choose me and I see me in the content that's there, it would be amiss for us not to allow ourselves to be fluid in our identity, to explore other stories and other journeys to help us then grow our empathy, to come back to reality, and then hopefully be better people, which is like one of the main things. The gravity of AR and VR, though, seems like something we should underscore. Gaming, of course, as you mentioned, Jessica, tons of hours being spent within gaming. Obviously, it's an entertainment form that's highly influential, but it is still stuck behind a pane of glass. That it still feels like we're once removed. When you're playing Mortal Kombat, you can get really into Mortal Kombat, but you know you're not really playing it. But in virtual reality with the simulation, it seems like it's game on. So thinking about that gravity, any other thoughts on why diversity is so important within this tech industry? Do you have something to say, Stephanie? You're thinking?
I think it's important as well because I think we are also in an industry who embrace changes, who is helping the world fast forward in many different areas, whether it's in tech, but it's also in the imagination, in the creativity, in the storytelling. So I think it's if there is one industry in this world that can help our world globally to be more inclusive, to be more diverse, making sure that everybody has is heard and understood, so I think this is our industry. So more than any other industry, I think we also have this responsibility, and it's a fantastic opportunity for us. It's a hope that gaming can have such a positive impact on the world overall, and so this is why also it's very exciting and interesting to work in our industry.
Yeah, and I love that idea because it is world building, right? And so one of the notions of augmented reality and even virtual reality is about creating a brand new world or creating a digital twin of this world. But it doesn't mean that we should be creating exact replicas of what's happening here. This is our chance, perhaps, to get it right. You think?
It's simulation. It's simulation. So you're creating rules, and you have your game design, and you're creating rules within your world. And so the way you design your rules can provoke positive behaviors for the players, or can have toxic behaviors or whatever. So it's a great simulation actually on the future of our world. It's a great way also to learn and to be equipped for our life, to be stronger in our life. So it's a great responsibility for people who create this world. And I think this is why at Ubisoft we making sure that we have all those viewpoints, all those skills, all those personalities, all those voices very present in everything we do, in every decision we take, because it's not only having diverse teams, and it's great, it's making sure that everyone can have an impact on the decisions that are made within our company or within our industry. This is what is at stake.
I also think that in that virtual reality, AR and VR go even deeper than just gaming. Like you just said that, I think it was you or Sylvain that said that now virtual reality is being used by a famous car maker to show you what the car would look like in your driveway. Like that's something that can be used by anybody, whether you know what a video game is or not. You know, so again, in that it's becoming something that's, and as time passes, it's going to become more and more a part of our everyday lives. I feel like, again, that's why the diversity is so important. You know, just the tiny nuances, you know, white, black, short, tall, gay, straight, whatever the case may be, everyone needs to be represented properly.
I think also it's really exciting to see the change that can be motivated through virtual reality. As you were saying, it's not just about creating the new reality that we want to see in virtual reality, it's also about what's the reality that we can't personally experience. I mean, two of my favorites are a virtual reality experience about being homeless, really present for those of us who live in San Francisco, and how does that motivate me as an individual to take action? I mean, it really changed my perspective of connecting more with the homeless people and supporting them from a place of empathy. Also, quite a few virtual reality experiences about being a refugee, living in a refugee camp, and how that changes our perspective and gives us motivation to change the reality that we want to see.
And I will add to that, in addition to being immersed and really understand and be in the shoes of in this experience, it's also VR will open gaming to billions of people. it's so accessible. Not today completely, but then you don't have a pad. It's your body, it's your brain, it's your eyes, it's your ears. So it means that we will reach billions. Today, Sylvain said 3.2 billion players in our industry, but tomorrow with VR and other disruption in our industry, it's 5 billion, it's 6 billion people. It's from the grandma to the little one who will access those platforms and we will play. And so our responsibilities are higher.
And Stephanie, I know you and I were talking a little bit about how can you create content that's right for all cultures, right? So, I think we're all advocates of diversity. We want to do the right thing. And we talked a little bit from a Unity and Ubisoft perspective where you do have offices globally. And each local area has its own definition and belief system around what is diverse and what they would like to see when it comes to diversity. So how do you honor and respect all people when you're creating content, whether it's games or music or a simulation, education simulation? How do you tackle that challenge?
I'm not sure we are always successful in doing that. I think it's very, very difficult. I think the fact that the company was built across the world, and again that our teams are working together, maybe ensure that we are maybe more accurate in our representation of the world. But still, I was telling you earlier, right, it's not because you have people of color in my team that I know or that he knows exactly and that can represent this community. So it's really dialogue, talking to include those communities and the diversity of those communities and of each individuals in our process from the start. And it's and even though I'm not sure we have always right, it's not always. Simple question to
right. And what I loved about what we were talking about backstage was about like this feedback loop and the listening, and how you may not always get it right from the start, but that's maybe not the point. I'm just saying it from my own. I'm not saying this is what you said, but that you want to do right, but you're open to listening to the feedback from the community of which you're serving, and using that as a loop to get better. And do better for even the next iteration of that content or the new content that might come down the pipeline.
And it's such a great reward when you realize you did it right. I have just one example in my mind, which was on one of our former games where we represented a character who was autistic, and we got letters from parents of autistic children. We wrote to our CEO, to our team, saying like it's the first time in the entertainment industry that they've seen their child being represented in a true and authentic way. And no surprise, the producer of this game was a parent of autistic children.
Very interesting.
I think at the end of the day, communication is the most important element of this whole thing. How can me as a 39-year-old black male, how can I create a woman's virtual experience? How can I create a middle-aged white man's virtual experience? If I don't personally know, I need to be at the very least willing to listen to these stories from these people so that the virtual experience is as real and as authentic as possible.
I think just building on those comments, one of the things I've personally learned in the last few years at Unity is just the power of humanity and the power of community, and that I'm not representing my country, I'm not even representing my company, that we're representing this Unity community that can transition into all of these different cultures and political viewpoints. And one of the stories that really brings that to life for me is working with a group of women, 20 women in Afghanistan, who were not allowed to go to school, and giving them the skills to actually become Unity creators, get certified, find jobs on our platform, and really supporting them and empowering them and knowing it was the right thing, even though their country and their religious belief system wasn't supporting it.
And I think that's what's really interesting about gaming in particular. You know, we were talking again backstage about how multidisciplinary the teams are, and that it's not typical for one game to be created, at least a large studio game to be created by one person. It literally takes a village. And so with a village, you need that communication. But also I think it's something to be said about thinking about the something larger than yourself, right? And understanding that no matter how good of a person you think you are, you have bias, and you have bias on so many levels. And that bias can come in handy when that bias is needed, but it really can work against you if you don't work with others, especially when you're going to be producing a piece of content that's being distributed globally. So before we go into some audience Q&A, I was at another event, and this quote was said to me that has stuck with me ever since around diversity and problem solving around diversity and inclusion. And it was that access to imagination is a privilege. And so, you know, we're here at Holberton School has developed a great set of programs, but even just getting to that point where you can have the imagination to search for those programs is a challenge for many youth. And so how do we clear the path and obstacles for these youth that need it in order to even muster the strength to have the imagination to go looking for these programs to make this change in this industry? Any thoughts? I know this is a big one.
Well, that's kind of the reason that I'm even a part of this whole Holberton situation. You know, my platform is pretty large and say different than Sylvan's platform. You know, so I could probably reach a different person than Sylvan could reach, or than Julian could reach, or even my panelists up here could reach. I think at the end of the day, it is about programs like this. It's about programs like this and making sure that people know about programs like this, which is why they you know, which is why I'm a part of the board. Just making sure that people are aware. You know, I've made this quote famous to a degree. If anyone's ever seen me talk about Holberton, I normally say something along the lines of, kids that grew up where I grew up don't grow up saying things like, I want to learn how to code, or I want to make video games, or whatever the case may be, because it's not realistic to them. You know, if they don't know it's there, if they don't know to search for it, if they don't know that it exists, then it's not real to them. It becomes real when they see it. And that's part of why I'm here, to just make sure that awareness is there, to help raise that awareness.
And then what happens when they go back to the community and show that, hey, you know, I'm from the community, I can code. Now they have somebody to look up to.
Now it's real. Now it's real. And the next generation follows suit, and the world is a better place. Hopefully.
At Ubisoft, we believe representation is really key, and it's important that our developers, our teams, are able to express themselves, to show their games, to show their work, so that indeed they can also show to their communities, and that it's possible. You can come and work in our industry. All the more, as I love to say, we are in an industry that, if you look at 10 years from now, 85% of the jobs in 10 years don't exist today. So the students here today, they are learning things that maybe they won't even use for sure they will use, but they are learning jobs that maybe won't exist tomorrow. So it's very important to learn, and coming back to what you expect from gaming is how our games can help you learn on things, learn on yourself, learn skills, learn on the world around you, learn to socialize, etc. And I think it's something that will also give access to the career path to the broader audience.
Jessica, any thoughts before we go to the audience?
Amen.
That's great. So I don't know if we have a mic in the audience, but I can run. We do, great. Thanks so much. We have a mic in the audience. We'd love to hear from you. What are some questions you have around diversity and inclusion in this industry?
You mentioned that virtual reality
Could you
worlds,
stand up, please?
no
We
worries.
can't see you.
You mentioned that virtual reality worlds are kind of empathy machines, But on the flip side, you have a lot of issues with bullying and people who kind of take advantage of other people online. How do you guys, as thought leaders, as celebrities, as ambassadors, as people who make these, different machines and different worlds, what kind of responsibility do you feel like you have, if any, to deal with the problems of online bullying?
Huge responsibility. It's a key initiative for us, the anti-toxicity, and really making sure that we're being proactive in taking that down.
Same here. Within our communities, there is a way to ensure or to promote the good behavior and making sure that indeed our communities of players are positive, caring for each other, caring for your players is really important, and also online bullying sometimes towards people like our devs and people who are different. So it's something we are facing every day, but it's a big focus for all of our teams and for also our players. Many of our players are really engaged in fighting against bad behavior. So I'm also very hopeful that we can leading also the anti-toxicity fight within our industry.
I think when you are an influencer or a tastemaker or whatever the case may be, when you know that you have a platform and people are listening, representation of positivity versus negativity is going to be super duper important, and your responsibility whether you want it or not. There are a lot of celebrities who choose to not accept it. Doesn't take away the fact that it's your responsibility. People are listening to you. If you tell them this shoe is cool, that's the shoe they go get. If you tell them that it's not fly to bully somebody online, they're probably going to listen to you. So I feel like it's a huge responsibility of the tastemakers or influencers or whatever the case may be. Whether you decide to accept the responsibility or not, it's definitely your responsibility. And I personally am making sure that, whenever I'm talking about Holberton or whenever I'm talking about, virtual reality, AR, VR, and what is to come, that it's all positivity. Now, the negativity is not going to go away. It's always going to exist. You need the night to recognize and identify the day. But at the same time, what it is we put the focus on, I feel like is what is going to be followed and paid attention to. So as long as the focus is put on positivity as opposed to the negativity, then that'll help us fight that in the long run. I ramble. I hope I answered your question. I'm sorry. I think I just like the sound of my own voice.
Hi. Talking about diversity, I'm wondering about when you think about our old people. I've seen before AR, Nintendo Wii making a pinch into old people in retirement house playing bowling, and for the first time they were exciting of playing bowling. Is it something today that you're seeing? Like, is there some initiative for those type of populations from the AR perspective?
I was going to rephrase it, but I don't know if I heard it all. Did you catch it? Okay. Can we? Is your mic on?
All right.
Oh,
no.
There we go.
All right. Sorry. Yeah, I'm not a pro of using mics. No, I'm just asking for initiatives for all population, like over 70, 80, using VR. I've seen like 15, 20 years ago, Nintendo Wii making something great for the old guys that could play bowling for the first time. Oh yeah, I can do this. Do you see this kind of initiatives as business for you guys?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because when we talk about diversity, we often talk about it from an ethnicity or a sexuality, but also age is a big thing. And as Neil pointed out, people with disability as well. So I think when we say the word diversity, we really should be understanding the many layers of diversity that make up who we are from a global perspective. When it comes to fun games for older individuals, I think right now my personal experience with virtual reality is that there's a ton of games that anybody of all ages can play, from Beat Saber to Fruit Ninja to Angry Birds, where you can either choose to sit down or stand up. But there are a lot of also simulations and experiences that are specifically created for the elderly population to help them with dementia, Alzheimer's, or just in providing them the ability to get outside when they can't get outside, as it were, from a simulation perspective. So from my perspective in looking at the landscape and content creation, I'm sure that the panel can speak a little bit more to that, I feel like the creators that are involved are thinking about different experiences for different age brackets.
Well, just all-inclusive means just that, all-inclusive, meaning every race, color, creed, age range, whatever the case may be, making sure that, again, everyone is involved, everyone feels special and included. That includes the elderly as well. So yeah, I think that, I can't speak from a standpoint of the people that make the games, but from the games that I've played, I am aware of games that are for elderly individuals, and they definitely exist, and I'm more than certain that there are more to come. Yeah.
And that goes as well with topic of accessibility in gaming, which is also a very, very important topic. Not only for the people who are older, but it's very important in order to making sure that everyone feel they can play and feel good at playing our games. So at Ubisoft, we have, I think, with all the developers in our gaming in our industry are working on improving in those question of accessibility with different features, partnering with some other companies, and I'm sure Unity, you also have some key interesting features and tools that allow better accessibility for our games. It's never enough. It's also.
Another question?
Sure.
Just make sure the mic's on. Okay, good. Thank you.
Hi. My question to you is, it's first of all, fascinating conversation. Thank you so much. You talked about humanity, you talked about empathy, you talked about accessibility. My question is, what are we doing for those who cannot have access to something like this? Because with AR and VR, you can actually bring the universe to them, to those who have almost nothing. We're talking about folks in the poverty level. How are you going to use a technology like this so that they can access the world? So look at it from the other perspective, not for, and also, the first time I had an opportunity to experience VR I was at a conference, and this was about 5-6 years ago when this was still being talked about, and we were trying to raise funds for our youth programs, and we actually showed to the donors what it is to be in a slum in Kenya, and that really caught their attention because not many people want to actually fly there and experience it personally, right? In person, sorry. But I want to know. When you're well off, you have access to this. So what are we doing the other way around? Because there is a huge need for them to be able to access our world, the world that's got plenty and more. Thank you.
Yeah, I think great question. I think, as most of you probably know, Unity works on 30+ platforms, key of which are mobile devices, which are prevalent in all of these communities. The key for us and what we think about is how do you go from a play experience, even if it's pure entertainment play, to then start moving to the point where you're thinking about modding, and how do we give you the tools to start modding those experiences on lower end devices, such that you can start creating your career from a place of play into modding, into full-on creating, and then enabling economic access and personal opportunities. So we think of it as a full circle experience.
Let's take one more question before we wrap things up on the panel.
Hi, it's me. I heard a story on the radio this morning about a community of people who are editing videos of popular movies to cut out diverse characters. So they cut out all the women in Star Wars. There wasn't much left. But I think one of the issues around these conversations with diversity is we're kind of preaching to the choir. Everyone here believes that diversity is important. So my question is, how do you address, or how are you thinking about those communities of people that are actively fighting against diversity?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have read recently Martin Luther King's Letters from Birmingham Jail. If you haven't, it is just the most profound piece of writing ever. And what it really speaks to is the white moderate, that the white moderate is actually more dangerous than the Ku Klux Klan. And this kind of sitting back, allowing these anti-diversity efforts to happen. And so for me, what I always try and think of is that amazing quote that an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere, and that we have to move to a point of anti-racism and getting out of our comfort zone and getting out of a groupthink mentality to be able to take action. And so I think that's not just a personal belief, but a belief, again, that's shared by this broader community that is trying to create that change.
I don't know what the exact answer to that question is. I know that you can't fight hate with hate. I know that much. So whatever the answer is, I know that it's going to come from a positive aspect as opposed to the negative aspect that they're coming from. And I think that, again, just speaks to making sure that when the talk is AR, VR, when the talk is Holberton, when the talk is the future, that the talk is all-inclusive. And just making sure that, when the choir leaves this room, that we spread that message to the rest of the world, so that the people that are doing these negative things don't have as much power as they currently do. I think that's ultimately what it's going to take. Just more positivity being pressed against the negativity that, again, is probably never going to go away. I mean, ignorance is ignorance, and it's kind of a part of who we are, which sucks. But it's not an undefeatable foe, I don't think.
I think I'm a very optimistic person. And again, I really believe our industry, with the media we are creating with games, is so powerful. The people in our industry share a passion, a love for this creation, for the tech, for what's coming next. Our players are super engaged, super committed, and so on. So I really believe that there is a driving force between the people who work in our industry, between the players, between all the stakeholders, that is going in a very optimistic direction. I've been working in this industry for 20 years, and each time there was societal stakes for our world, the industry was really serious about it and making sure that we were moving fast in the right direction for the best, for the good of our world. So I'm sure we can have this positive impact globally, and indeed, I will stay on the positive and while being aware of the people who try to prevent us going this way.
It's very hard to preach the importance of any race, color, creed, gender to a person that has dedicated themselves to being ignorant. And I feel like if you're gonna do something as stupid as waste as much time as it would take to edit all the women out of Star Wars, you've pretty much dedicated yourself to ignorance, And with that being said, what do you say to that person? Like, this person is, that's man hours. Like, I'm more than certain it took a long time to do, but it was important to them. So again, it's just about making sure that your message is positive all the time. Whenever the discussion comes to you, making sure that you're preaching positivity as opposed to the negativity that's just going to be there anyway.
And I think there's a level of activism that's required from people in the room that are believers. We are embarking on a shift, and it may seem like just a shift from 2D to 3D, but it's actually a shift in humanity is what this representation is. It's as imperative as colonizing Mars and global climate issues. And so these discussions are important because we have the chance to get it right. We are going to be creating new worlds, and we've been living in a time where our technology has been safe behind little glass boxes in a sandbox, and now it's go time. If we don't get it right, it's game over. And so to you in the crowd that are already sold in on the need for diversity, make sure you act on it. Be an activist for technology to ensure that the new wave is the wave that you want to see reflected. I think that's another thing you can do when you're here. And that could mean just being an ally, and being an ally is extremely important. So I'm going to ask our panelists before we say goodbye to just leave one parting word. We have a lot of students in the room, so I thought it would be amazing for you to depart some wisdom and advice. What are some of the students? What are some of the advice you would give to the students in the room who basically are our future?
So I will share one advice I give to my team. It's up to each of us to make things going in the right direction. Don't wait for a company, for a government, for any organization to make the world going in the right direction. It's really up to you, and so go for it.
Go for it. Awesome.
We live in the information age, which means that ignorance is a choice. And I think that we just need to make sure that we are choosing to not be ignorant, that we're choosing to take this knowledge, to take this that we've learned in this room, and spread it to the rest of the world. It's literally up to us. It's something that you just said. We have an opportunity to get it right this time. Everything that we've done wrong for so many years, all the wrong that's happened for so many years, we have an opportunity to change that. It's not going to change unless we take this message of positivity, this message of equality, this message of inclusiveness, and spread it to the rest of the world, to the people who don't know. Make sure that they're aware. Make sure that they're aware of what they need to be aware of, as opposed to, just know and understand that there are people on the negative side pushing too. So our fight has to be just as potent as theirs in order for this thing to be done the right way. So take your fight to the streets, ladies and gentlemen. That's what it is.
And I'll just close with, Neo, I can't remember what you said to me when I met you a half hour ago, but it was something around that's just like leading with love. What was your?
All love.
All love.
All love. It's my slogan. It's my motto. I'm getting it tattooed Tuesday.
I loved it. So leading with all love, it was an impactful moment for me. And then also ask us for help. Ask others for help. It takes a village,
So thank you, Neo, Jessica, Stephanie. Thank you, Holberton School, for what you are doing and for the curriculum that you're launching for AR and VR. And thank you for all being here to witness this. And I'm going to hand this back to Sylvain to wrap things up. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, sir, for navigating this ship. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That was really, really cool. Thanks to all the panelists. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Stephanie, Neo, and Jessica, Ubisoft. We are going to be having refreshments as well as food. And if you want to experience AR and VR, we have VR and AR headsets at the back of the room on the left. Try it out. Thank you.